So these are some of the items we're going to be covering: the goals, the career, the tools, the file systems for the different operating systems. What's the process like from acquiring, preserving, presenting the evidence? Then how do we get hash values? How do we get signatures of files so that we can ensure integrity from the point we are picking the data and the time we are presenting the data? And of course, how do we perform a digital forensic report? Okay, now what are the learning modules for this particular course? So the first one is introduction and understanding of digital forensics. So some goals, some history, some type of investigation, some tools that we're going to be using, some of the legal implications of what you're doing, some of the trends, the challenges, the anti-forensic techniques. Just like every kind of technique you want to use to catch a thief or nip the bud of a crime, people are always going to have countermeasures to that. So compliance and forensics, cybersecurity and forensics. Then the next module, we want to be looking at the career options and the different aspects. Now, it all depends on where your core competencies are. If your competence lies within network, within cloud, that's why it's good before you come in to do cybersecurity, you make sure that your majors, your foundations are very, very sound. Networking, web programming, those are core foundations that most everything is hinged on. For instance, if you have your Cisco certification, or if you have any networking certifications, either from a CompTIA, or you have skill set in terms of LAN, wireless technologies, you could put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 systems. You understand ports, what it means by topology. You understand the OSI model and all of those things that have to do with networking. Once you're a little bit sound on that, it aids your being able to do digital forensics very well. Of course, for operating systems, you want to be familiar with the Mac OS, with the Windows OS, and the Linux operating systems. Now, for web applications, if you have to conduct digital forensic, like for instance, there was a time we had a client, the website was hacked, we got to fix the website. We now have to start doing some forensic on the application to see why it happened, when it happened, who was responsible for it, and the other questions that you would typically ask when you're conducting a digital forensic. Of course, if you cannot set up sites, if you cannot set up servers, it will be difficult for you to be able to carry out that particular type of forensic. So you should be familiar with some programming language and the rest. It's actually a journey, but you can start. Same thing with cloud. You should be familiar with the Amazon Web Services, their cloud services. Same thing with Azure and Google. I'm very much more conversant with the Amazon platform. Have some certifications there. So if you have to conduct forensics there, it then means something happened on either of the services, either the S3 bucket, either their storage, their maybe their proprietary DynamoDB, or any of those services that is being used by a client and something happens. How do you now collect evidence from there? We're going to be doing some case studies with respect to malware analysis, because if you're trying to investigate a cyber breach, then you've got to be able to understand what a malware is, the different types of malware, what the different types of malware analysis, both the static analysis and the dynamic analysis. For the static analysis, it then means that you have a malware file, or you have a file that you think contains a malware, and you want to analyze it using a software like Pest Studio, like Sucuri and the rest. Whereas for dynamic analysis, it then means that you want to run the malware and see how it behaves. How does the operating system respond to the malware? What and what is being started at the background? Is there any communication with any backdoor? You want to use a tool like TCP view to see what ports it's connecting, what are the corresponding ports outside of your network that this particular malware application is connecting to. Same thing for mobile and email forensics. Same thing for, we're going to understand what are the different types of digital forensic certifications. Then how do we prepare for an investigation? Understand that there's a chain of custody, the tools we need, whether they're software, whether they're hardware. They will understand hex numbers. Now, most of these things that files, in terms of files that we see, they have their corresponding buildup of hex numbers. They will also see some forensic OS distribution. For instance, like the Kali Linux box have a particular set of tools that is just dedicated for digital forensics. In module 4, we're going to be looking at boot sequences. So this is file fundamentals. Because you see the way malwares that tend to affect your PC and affect what you do, how they behave is that most of the times they interact with the operating systems. Since they interact with the operating systems, then you need to understand the boot sequence of these operating systems and all of that. Then in module 4, we're going to be looking at cryptography. Now, because encryption, password cracking, steganography, that is a hiding of files, because, for instance, some files might be hidden from the human eye, or where people use alternate data streams. Alternate data streams is where you use more than you have more than 2-3 files just in one single file, where people hide stuff. So you want to be able to unravel these files and be able to see what is behind them. Then for module 6, we're going to be seeing how do we acquire data, how do we preserve it. Then what are some of the techniques we use in preserving data. Then in module 7, we're going to be looking at presenting our evidence. Then of course, how do we set up a lab? Some of the tools we're going to be looking at in this training is we're going to be using the Windows or the Linux operating system. We won't actually touch the Mac operating system, but we'll concentrate more on Windows and Linux tools. We're going to use Autopsy. We're going to use the VMware, Hex Workshop, Volatility, FTK Manager, OpenStego or QuickStego, any of those steganographic tools. Then Wireshark, then VirusTotal Sucuri. VirusTotal Sucuri, they do very similar things in terms of checking for web application, checking for files if they have malware, having the signature, having the hash value. Because for instance, if we see a file and it has a malware, and we know the signature and we know the hash value, the thing is that there are always a database for most of these previous occurrence. So we can use that to corroborate, we can use that to collaborate, we can use that for intelligence sharing. Then of course, bulk extractor, Linux utility for disk partitioning and the rest. Then the sys internals tools, that is a Microsoft tool by one of Microsoft employees. The suits that have quite a lot. Then gparted, then binary hex converter. This and some other tools are what we're going to be using to run our digital forensic course. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to be looking at quite some introduction. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.